You're watching Adorama TV.
Hi everybody, I'm Mark Wallace. Welcome to another episode of Adorama TV product reviews. Today we're going to be talking about the Nikon SB910 Speedlight, and this is the new flagship Speedlight from Nikon, and it replaces the SB900, and this retails for $546.95. Now this does everything that the SB900 does, but there are some improvements that I really like, and so let me just talk to you about some of the new things that the SB910 provides. One of the most notable things is the user interface. The graphical user interface on the back has been redesigned, and it is much easier to use. And so now we have three dedicated buttons here, a dedicated mode button, a mode and a menu button. So there's always been a mode button, but now you can dive right into the menu instead of having to hit this middle button for a couple seconds. You can just push menu, and it takes you right into the menu here. And it's easier to navigate through all your custom functions because now you can move up and down with these buttons instead of using this little scroll wheel. If you want to dive into one of these items, you can hit this button and it takes you right into that actual menu. So it's a lot easier to move around. You hit menu to get back out of that. And so that GUI, the graphical user interface, is new. It's a little bit easier to use, and I really like that. And you can do other things as well. Now you have buttons for things like exposure, flash exposure compensation. You just push that, and you can dial things up or down, or changing the zoom, things like that. So the buttons are a little bit easier to use. The other thing that this has now that I really like, it auto detects if you're on an FX or a DX camera. And then the zoom, so how much light is being thrown out there and the angle of that light automatically adjusts for the size of your sensor, and so it knows what's going on and knows what camera that you have the flash attached to, which is very nice. And then the other thing that is really nice about this, the case has been redesigned, which I really like. I'll talk about that in a second. But also, the filters are different. So on the SB900 and other earlier Nikon flashes, you had a transparent filter that was sort of like this, and then what you had is this little pouch, and inside the pouch there were different gels, and then you'd have to put the gel inside this thing, and so if you got it on there wrong, or you could tear it or lose it, most of the time people would lose that. It was sort of a hassle to work with. Now these have been improved, and they're actually just plastic gels, and so there's nothing to lose. And also there's a redesign with how this attaches, and so as soon as you put this on, so this is one that's made for matching the light to a tungsten light source. You just snap it on there. Now the flash automatically knows that it has a tungsten gel on it, and it knows that because there's a little sensor on the bottom, and so when this snaps on there, it knows to change the white balance on the camera. So if you have this on the camera, the flash will tell the camera to set its white balance to tungsten, and everything will match. It's really nice. Or if you're shooting in fluorescent light, this again will just snap right on there, and so it's ready to go. And then if you want some diffusion on top of that, then this snaps on top of that. And so that is a lot easier to use than the past flash, where you'd have to take a transparent gel and stick something in there, and if you stuck it on there, it was a hassle, and so that is greatly improved. And then this all just sort of sticks right into the case here. Now the case is pretty nifty because in the past the case was a long case, and so you had to slide this down, and then there was an extra thing on the bottom of that, and so you had this really long case, and putting that into your bag was a hassle because it just didn't fit. And so what most people would do is they'd take their flash out, fold it up like that, and stick it in the bag, and then they wouldn't even bring the gels, or they'd stick that somewhere else, or maybe stick it underneath. And so Nikon watched what people did, and they changed the bag, and so now everything just sticks in there just like that, like you would normally hold it. And so it's a smaller case, and it fits into a bag a lot easier. So I like that as well. Now the other thing that is a vast improvement on this flash is something that people have talked about a lot with the SB900, and that is when the flash heated up, it would just stop working. And so if you're shooting a lot of pictures very, very quickly, sports, things like that, then on the back there's a little temperature gauge that would heat up. It would say, hey, your flash is too hot, we don't want it to self-destruct. And so the flash would just stop working altogether, and that was really frustrating. And so with the 910, what happens is there's a new function called the thermal cutout function. And what it does, instead of shutting the flash down altogether, when it detects that the temperature is rising and things are getting to the dangerous area, it changes the refresh rate, and so instead of the flash refreshing really quickly, it slows everything down. So you can still use your flash, you just can't use it as quickly as you might like, but what that allows you to do is to continue to take pictures without melting down your flash, which is really, really nice. Now, the other thing that this has, I mentioned before, it auto detects if you're on an FX or a DX camera. This has some illumination patterns that I really like. And so there's a standard illumination pattern, and that's how the light actually comes out of the flash. And that standard illumination pattern is useful for almost any kind of photo, but there are two additional illumination patterns that are specific to specific types of needs. So one of them is called the center weighted illumination pattern, and that is great if you want to take portraits, because what happens is it gives you more light toward the center of your photo and allows light to fall off on the edges, which is great for a lot of portraits. And this gives you a greater guide number so you can work at greater distances. There's a little bit more power output. The trade-off is you're going to have some vignetting or light fall off on the edges of your image. Some people like to add that in post-production anyway, so if you're one of those people like I am, the center weighted option is great. And then there's another pattern, and it's called the even pattern. And what the even pattern does is it gives you an even distribution of light across the entire image. There is no light fall off, and that is great for shooting group portraits indoors. And so you've got three options: the standard illumination pattern, center weighted, and even. And so you can do that all by just hopping into the menu on the back, and then you can dial in what kind of illumination pattern you want very, very quickly, because the graphical user interface has been improved and it just works great. So if you love the Nikon SB900 like I do, you're really going to love the SB910. It's a workhorse. It's very powerful. It's got a lot of light output, and it's $546.95. And so for the working professional, it's very affordable for something you're going to have on location and use for years and years and years and years. Well, there you have it. Again, it's the Nikon SB910 Speedlight for $546.95. I love it and highly recommend it. Well, thank you so much for joining me this week. Remember to check out all the past videos that we've done on product reviews, as well as tutorials and interviews with other photographers at the Adorama Learning Center. And if you have questions about photography gear or photography in general, send me a note at askmark@adorama.com.
This episode is brought to you by Adorama TV. Visit the Adorama Learning Center, where you'll find photography tips and techniques, links to the gear used in this episode, and related videos. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit Adorama.com. And the next time you're in New York City, visit our store, located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue.